Oh my goodness, we are doing it even though I'm in Vegas, even though I've been not sleeping. It's episode 30. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that wherever you are is doing good for you. It's me, it's Paul Carpenter, and this is episode 30, and we are doing today with a gentleman whose name is Hardy Brooklyn. I'm going to post here in the comments so you can find out more about him. Hardy is a badass, is just the short form of it, really. And he is a person who teaches others how to live authentically. He also runs a bunch of podcasts, and he teaches a bunch of classes, but more so than anything else, once again, he teaches people how to live authentically. I'm adding him in right now, episode 30. For those who don't know, this is me attempting to do a world record of 365 videos, long-form podcasts, doing one every single day. And today we have Hardy. Here he is, my friend. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm so happy to have you. Hardy, if you wouldn't mind, please tell everybody who you are, where you come from, and what you do. Give it to us.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
My name is Hardy Brooklyn. I am from Brooklyn, New York.
All right, and okay, that's fine. Where were you born? What do you do? What's the story?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a life coach, and I help people live their authentic self through coaching technique and questioning, as well as by living myself in my true authentic self by doing life the way that I want.
And so when you first started, I mean, as a kid, what's your life story? Tell me where you come from, like how it all started. What were you doing? In other words, you were born in Brooklyn, but tell me about your family. Let's go through the beginning of life and what happened and all that stuff.
So my life story is I started in the world of business. I started with food. I started working in kosher catering and moved from kosher catering into technology. So I worked at a kosher caterer that was a fellow deadhead of mine for many years, a friend.
Okay.
And when I graduated college, I decided it was no longer time to meet the bread man, and I wanted to start my own business, and I felt that there was a technology bundle that was going on, so I started a technology consulting services company. Kept that around for a bunch of years. We specialized in the power generation world, so power plants, gas, geothermal, solar, wind,
right,
and music festivals.
Really? Okay.
And as a result of that, excuse me?
No, I was just saying I'm just impressed by the story. Keep going.
And basically, after years and years of living my inauthentic self and working in the power generation industry, I basically had a revelation. The industry decided that I was no longer the image that they wanted to represent because I was doing a lot of nude stuff and modeling and colorful stuff and friendly stuff and, whether it was Grateful Dead stuff or Fish stuff or Burning Man world stuff, it didn't matter what I did. They did not accept me anymore because I was not like the one percenters. I was not conservative. I wore a purple shirt instead of a white shirt. And they made my life miserable. They proceeded to basically blacklist me in the industry. So I had to leave the industry. And as a result of that, all my friends were like, you would make a great coach. You would make a great coach. And I'm like, all right. So I went online right before the pandemic, and I took certifications from 3 different coaching schools. Because after being in sales, consulting for so long, one of the things that I realized is that there's no one right methodology. So the methodology that you're getting from company A might not be the right methodology for what you're looking to achieve. And so many coaching schools out there do that. What they do is they teach their process and only their process, and that's it. And to me, that is not right, and it does not do justice for the client. So I spend a lot of time with my clients helping them live authentically by going through different modalities. Because if I'm just going to stay with, let's say, Tony Robbins has a unique way of doing things. That way works for a certain percentage of people and a certain types of personalities. If your personality doesn't work with that, you're not going to accomplish anything. And there are so many people that I interact with where I'm coaching, and from week to week, I'm using different modalities that I've learned from 3, 4 different schools, or from Dale Carnegie, or from Sandler Sales. All of those things are relevant as a coach. And to go for some of the certifications that are so restrictive, just do it my way and you'll make money. Yeah, you'll make money, but you're not truly helping your customer.
So I guess, like, when you say living authentically, and granted, you have purple hair and I mean, that's an extreme version, I guess, of authentic living. So if somebody were to be more, call it, in the matrix, or part of the one percenters, as you said it, or even just part of the corporate world, how does somebody kind of, I mean, and granted, I guess each person is different, but, like, how would you approach that? Do you ask someone to go out into the street and do, like, a free hug campaign with you, or do you like? And granted, again, each person's different, but is that kind of like what you ask people to do and how you do your thing for them?
Everything varies depending on person. First thing that we need to figure out for most people is what's keeping them where they are there. What's the belief system that's putting them in that place, or the lack of belief system? And for a lot of the people that I work with, there's a couple of different things. There's limiting beliefs, there's preconceived notions, and there's fear of uncertainty. So if you're trying to live yourself authentically, you have to figure out what that is first. So I can't just have somebody go do free hugs with me. I've got to have a couple of sessions with them where I'm asking them questions, having them validate and answer those questions, having them come to the aha moment, and then I can start moving them forward. So if I'm working with somebody that, let's say, oh, I'm miserable in my job, I can't do all these things, I'm not having any time to myself, blah, blah, blah. They have to come to the aha moment that they need to leave the job. I can't just tell them, man, the job is what's killing you. Because a lot of times there are reasons why. So I've worked with people that have been stuck at work. And when you drill down to it, it's like, I'm never going to let anyone down because my father never did. Or I'm working for this person who is connected to my mom, or my mom got me the job, so I can't let my mom down and quit and move on. I've got to stick it out and make it work. It's me, not them. And that is a big thing for people, that they have a lot of fears, and they feel they're letting other people down. And in a lot of situations, your employer is who's letting you down. The people around you are who are letting you down, because they're not letting you live your true self. They're not letting you speak about what you're saying.
I'm just saying, listen to what he's saying, as I'm saying, listen to what he's saying, because these are key points that have been popping up throughout these episodes. And one of those things is that other people's fears enter your life, and a lot of time those fears don't come to you because, like, they're not coming to you from them because they don't like you. They're coming to you from them because they're scared of what could happen to you if you were to do this or that or the other.
That's correct. And it's not even what could happen to you. It's what ramifications or what is going to happen to them. What are they going to see? What's going to change in their life? So if you're trying to live yourself authentically and you're married to a partner that you haven't had these discussions in the past, and then you start to have these discussions, your partner's going to be afraid of everything that can possibly happen. He's going to leave me. He's going to find somebody else. He's going to quit his job. He's going to be a bum on the street. Or he's going to make $1 million and buy a house and leave me behind. So all of these fears are stuck in our brains. And more so than our brains, they're stuck in our hearts. And when they're stuck in their hearts, we bring emotion into the situation. And that makes it a lot harder to move forward. Because we have to take the emotion, the past baggage, the potential fear of the unknown. We have to take all that out. And one of the things I tell people when they're trying to make a decision, who's going to die? Who's going to die? I want to make my hair purple. Who gives a crap? Who's going to die? Women can do it. Why can't guys? You know, I want to go to a rave in the morning at 53 years old. Why?
It's just so true, though. I think that so many people get caught up, and I talk about this a lot, where we get caught up in what societal standards or the what are they called? Like their contracts. Like that we all agree on. When I put my hand out, you shake your hands. You know, we just lost him there for a second. We'll get him back in, I'm sure. Any moment now, he'll probably pop out back in, I hope. But yeah, what an amazing episode so far that's happening. I'm super stoked. I think what happened was probably somebody called him on the phone, like it happens to me all the time, and somebody cut him off. So let's just bring him back in. Once again, what an amazing episode we're having so far. It's not letting you back in. So I think what you might have to do is jump out of the feed and then jump back in, and then maybe I can add you back in. But what an interesting episode, like in finding out so much, you know, and also like when someone says they're living authentically, you know, and you would think that like I at least, you know, I saw some pictures of Hardy before he came on and stuff, and so I'm expecting maybe you know, crazy outfit or something, or maybe some kind of outlandish character, but it's a very kind of like, no, you don't understand. Like, I get me, so I don't have to be blah blah blah. You know, is almost what I'm getting out of it. You know, like I understand myself so well that I don't have to be boisterous and out there and loud, because for what? I can do that in so many other different ways. At least that's what I'm getting. Tell me I'm wrong.
And well, there's a balance, because there are times where I want to present as art and creativeness and bring that authentic self, because in America, or men are not dressed colorful. Men do not dress sophisticated. They don't dress to impress. If they're dressing to impress, it's going to be black and white. So when I go out, like I went out the other day, I wore bright crochet pants and a red skin-tight red T-shirt and artsy boots, and the amount of comments that I got were like, wow, you're so dead on, you're showing up, you're present. That was the most important comment I got, was I was present. And that made me think a lot about what that means. It means I went to an event and I partake in the event. I become part of the event. So when I go to a burlesque show, not only do I dress up nice, like as what is expected of somebody that's going to a burlesque show, but I'll also add a bunch of flair so that if somebody's performing or there's a performer there, I become a prop for them. And now it's a comfortable space in the audience that they can relate to. And even if they're just walking around, and everybody's like, oh, my friends say, oh, you don't want to take anything away from the performers or the actors or the actresses. I say, that's fair. Name one actor or actress that doesn't want me to come dressed to present. And I've been going to burlesque since 2002 on a heavy, regular basis. And there's been one promoter that told me not to dress to present. And that's it. And everybody else in the club told me not to listen to him. And he is no longer in the industry anymore. So,
you know, I think that's one of those people. It's like this mentality. I was trying to talk to my mom about this the other day, and I said to her, you know, I'm looking at the views, and the views are steadily growing. Like, you can actually, like, when I look, and you can even go to the views on Facebook, granted on YouTube, they're dead. There's like 1 view, 2 views, 3 views, but I'm using YouTube as my place of like holding.
Right.
And I plan on taking a lot of everything that I've already done and then uploading to everywhere. So like uploading on Rumble, uploading on Kick, and uploading on Twitch, and just having it everywhere so that it, and then also creating a website where I can connect each one of the episodes outwards. So that's the plan, right? And so that way every person gets their own page on my website is what I plan on doing.
Okay.
Right. So that way there's like 365 pages of all the, maybe I do it by month or something. And then each month that you were in, you go to the and 30 some odd people are there, and, something like that. And so I was telling her, I'm really loving this thing. And I saw somebody else who did a podcast, and when I watched them, it felt like they were doing a lot of what I do in my podcast. Like they've been watching I know they're watching my podcast. I know who they are. Right. And she goes, "Oh, be careful. You need to save that. And you need to, trademark it and copyright." And I was like, Mom, there's enough room on the street. Cause I've been a street performer for years. Right. It's my friend, John. I've been a street performer for years. And the idea on the street is, he's so funny, bro. Is that there's enough room on the street for you to do your act here and somebody else do their act here. And even if this person copies your act, it doesn't really matter, because it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're there to perform.
I would agree. I would agree with you pretty much almost across the board on that. But there is enough room on the street for everybody to do, but there are a lot of street performers that feel threatened by other performers.
And so that's where I come into where I like, because I've worked in Covent Gardens where there's only one magic spot and 6 magicians will sit there all day long and watch every other magician until they get to go on, and then hope that they can get 2 sets in one day. So, and that is actually this beautiful community of magicians that if you come there from out of country, like I did, and you perform and it does well or something, then they want to know, oh, where did you learn that from? And how can we use that? And then if you do bad, they go, hey, why don't you try this? Or I've seen somebody else do this. And so it's a beautiful community in England, especially in Covent Garden, the magicians there, that were super loving, about street and understanding that, yeah, look, if you don't want to do this spot, there's another one over there and another one over here and another one over there. But the one that we all like to share is here. And this is the one where everybody knows where we are. So,
and I see that a lot when we leave America, because I've traveled all over the world. I've been to 15 countries. And I see that a lot. But what I see in New York is I see people feel threatened. So
yeah,
a perfect example
Times
is
Square for sure. Because I've done Times Square by myself.
I went to Times Square to do a body positivity event. And the amount of pushback we got from all of the street performers there, I mean, we were basically threatened to leave, because this is where they make their money. This is where they make their money that then doesn't see, so they don't have to pay for child support, which is literally the reasoning they gave to the cops. This is where I make my buck, so I don't have to pay child support to my mama's boy. So now we have people that push regular performers out, and we have them doing whatever they're doing with the enforcement to make it feel uncomfortable for normal street performers. And on the flip side of that, it's not as good for the audience. So now when people come to Times Square, they're like, man, it's shady, it's crowded, it's not really an international thing, I got to watch my bag, I might get pickpocketed. I mean, and it's...
And to just put it out there, the Times Square Alliance really, really, really attempted to do the best they could with the green spaces where you are only supposed to perform in these areas, except that they didn't think about performers. They only thought about anybody else, like a Mickey Mouse or I I don't know. They didn't think of like, hey, here's going to be a person that's going to want to play guitar and be naked on the street and do this thing on the corner. And
So there are spaces for all them. The problem is that you have all these guys that are doing the flips and the jumps and all that. They come in and
right.
take over
So
the
what
whole
they've
thing.
done, right, and what they do is they end up trying to take over one of those green spaces for themselves, and
They
then
take them all over. They get there at 5 o'clock in the morning and take all of the spaces over, so nobody else can perform.
right, right. Well, I mean,
And they
there's
pay, and they hand the cops a couple of bucks, so they leave them alone.
yeah,
And the
and then
transfer
some of
lines
those, and
guys
then
won't
some of
even
those
go over
kids,
them.
and some of those kids have become famous on TikTok. And I'm talking about millions upon millions of views. So then it starts to almost look good that these kids are doing these dance things there because that's what people are seeing on TikTok, and then they want to see it. And then there was even a news reporter that did a dance that one of the TikTok stars did, and he did it together on his TikTok, and then they got on national television together. So,
I
you
mean,
know,
there are good performers. There are some of those guys are honest and they're great performers. But as someone that's an artist and it's been there, I don't really want to say this on the air, but I am. It's too shady.
there's a
I mean,
bit of a
I watch guys go around and pickpocket people and look in people's bags when they're performing. I mean, they're doing things and they have other people there that are working with them. And it's sad because that's not New York.
there are parts of a street dance act that I have always felt are very heavy. And that is the point when they bring in the 5 people that they're going to jump over. They've already done their crowd building. They've already got, they've already done their one-off dances and all that. And then they go to this bit, and then that bit is we're going to hurt you unless you pay us. And it's granted it's a joke and all that, but then they like will kind of go through your wallet to pull the 20 or the 100 or whatever they can get. And they rough handle the person a bit as a comedic thing, but it always has felt heavy to me. I know
Heavy.
street performers who are dancers who specifically don't do that part of the routine because it does feel so heavy and it does feel a little bit like, that's a little, like you're there to entertain, not to be a grifter in the street to the people. I mean, look, you want to get really bad, the CD guys, the guys who, when they could back in the day and they were able to sell CDs, that was one that was like, whoa. Because many times those CDs would be empty. It would just have nothing on it except for them writing on something with a Sharpie, and you paid $20 for a blank CD with a signature on it.
And they're back. They're in Times Square.
I mean, listen, in the idea of scam, make money, easy money, on the street, hustling mindset.
So how do we move that? How do we move that as a society to a more positive mindset? Because those performers can make so much more money if they performed more ethically.
I don't want to agree with you on that. I'm sorry, Harvey.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be rough here or disrespectful. I've got 15 years, 20 years on the street all over the world. And the reason the dance acts go the way they do is because it works so well and they make so much money. I know one of the originators.
But that's the point. Is so all of that money they're making is tax free because they're not reporting any of it.
Yeah, no, of course not. And I don't. And then we get into another one. I don't think you should. I believe that what you're dealing with is a donation, which is non-taxable. I believe it's the most honest form of work there is still to this day, where you go to the street, you make a show, nobody knew you were going to be there, you own the moment, you make $200, you walk away. There's no other real honest way of working in the world that I know of that you can make that much money that quickly while entertaining and still living on your terms. I don't have a boss. I don't have a four-wall stage. I'm not paying for marketing. I don't have to pay for tickets.
So
I just go live my life. I have some cards and some tricks on me and a rope. I throw the rope down. I start doing tricks. I gain an audience. I make money. I walk away.
And I agree with you. I agree with you, but not for those dance performers, because a lot of those dance performers are not there by their own choice. They're there, like, for instance, when I was there a couple of weeks ago, one guy was pissed that he couldn't see his girl until he made them a certain amount of money. So those people that are doing these performances are not street performers. They're usually there because they're a slave. They've got somebody else that they're holding. They owe somebody money. I mean, I literally saw 3 of those performers that were in that situation. And I do talk to I'm friendly with the girls that walk around Times Square. And she said that's most of them. Most of them either owe money for a drug deal that went bad, or they knocked somebody off, or something like that.
Because it's such an easy scam, right? You can scam on top of scams, and then, like you said, put somebody in a debt perpetual system where it's like, yo, you have to work and you have to be part of the show and you have to make us money back because you lost the money on the drugs. And that could very well be a lie in the first place. Like, they never lost the drug money. They did it correctly, but it was all scam in the first place, right? Yep. So just to hold them, just to put them in the situation where they have to work every day and they have no choice and they have to make a certain amount of money every day just to walk away. So what a world we live in, Hardy.
What a world we live in. That I'm talking about that need to do it more structured. So if the Times Square Alliance took that show and made it their own show, it would be way better for Times Square than having random performers. If they decided we're going to get some people and they're going to perform and tips are going to be fair and the cops are going to be there enforcing to make sure while the performers are performing, nobody's looking through my bag, nobody's pickpocketing me, nobody's,
so then in that case,
you like that, give me a tip. You like that, give me a tip. If that wasn't happening,
that goes into almost like a Fremont style way of doing things that they have not implemented in New York, which would be very tough. But even in Vegas, the system is a bit, it can very easily get manipulated by people just creating 5 and 6 and 7 client accounts and going in there all at the same time and voting for themselves to get on to a circle. And if they don't get it in one account, they have it in 6 others. So they
right.
And so then that person gets on every night and then other people don't. And then, so me personally, I go in the morning if I'm going to perform in Vegas. From 11 to 4 o'clock, the circles don't represent the same thing. The rules aren't necessarily the same. In other words, you can step outside of the circle and still charge money. Whereas after 4 o'clock, you cannot do that ever again. Like, if you step out of your circle, you get fined. You can't come back. Like, they have like so many stupid rules on there, and it's hurtful to the performance. Because many times when you're a street performer, you need to be able to get up and grab someone. Oh, come here, let me show you this, or whatever. Or you, sir, come closer. And then you kind of get out of your circle to bring them in to come back to your circle to bring the, you're trying to control the line, if you will, or whatever. And so, yeah, man, there's a weird thing that's happening in today's world. Like Garrett LaSalle came in and says it's the younger generation that's causing most of the issues. And I said, I kind of agree, but I also laugh at that statement because how many times have the older generation looked back and gone, oh, those damn kids with their damn rock and roll music. That's all we're doing right now, on some level. And then on the other level,
I disagree with him. I think that a lot of it is it's not the younger generation. It's what the older generation left for the younger generation and in perception. Because I work with so many people, and a lot of the people I hang out with, as you know, are probably in their 20s and 30s, and I'm probably double their age. And one of the things that I find out from them is they're like, well, and I'm like, well, I didn't do that. They're like, well, everybody in your generation did. And I look and I see that they're mirroring the behaviors that they see on TV. They're mirroring the behaviors they see in the news. And if people go and take whatever they want on every TV show and have no ramifications, and then politicians go do the same thing in the news, what is the general population going to do? They're going to do the same thing. And if they feel that they could bribe this cop to do this, all of these things coalesce and come together. Mm-hmm. So it's not the younger generation, it's how we train, how we educated, what belief systems we put in the younger generation.
And by the way, Garrett came back and he goes, no, it was a question. I was asking a question. Is the younger generation that's causing most of the issues? He was asking, do you think that it's the most of, yeah, is it the younger generation that's doing this? Do you think? And your answer was the same pretty much either way. It's like, no, it's not the younger generation nonetheless. It's really the older generation that lived extremely well and all this great and then said, hey, it's on you to fix it. Screw you guys, we're out.
Yep.
You know, and a lot of the quote unquote baby boomers that are now on the way out, it's very much, yes, that kind of behavior from them. Yet at the same time, if you study the course of things, right, there's 10,000 plus businesses right now that are going out of business every year for the next 10 to 15 years that anybody who's watching this right now can learn how to buy a business with no money down or with somebody else's credit, just like you buy a house. But instead of buying a house that doesn't really make you money, you buy a business which makes you money. And so you can live off the residual of that money. You don't even have to take all of the money that it makes. Give most of it back to the business and let it grow and only take 30%, and you're still going to live really well. And a business that makes $1.2 million a year. Think about it, folks. But most people won't go there. They get scared. I don't know if I can do it. I'm not sure how this is done. I think Paul's a scammy guy who's talking scams. It's not me. I'm a parrot of, Cody Sanchez, who owns, I think, 37 or 27 businesses, makes $80 million a year and teaches people how to do it. And then if you don't have the money, she'll buy the business for you. Go look her up. There's all these people. Alex Homrosi, acquisitions.com, literally, where they help you acquisition other companies. It's out there, but people, I had this conversation yesterday with my friend, or no, a couple back, and he was saying, my life changed when I had my own economy. But he started learning how to do caricatures. And he's like, once I had that, and I could literally just sit down, have a little sign that says caricatures and an easel, and people will show up and sit down, and I can make money. He's like, once I learned that I had that, he was like, all bets are off, bro. Yeah. So okay. So let's if you don't mind, we got into a bit of like how you kind of got into this. It's just recently, if you will, like in the last 3-4 years of your life that you quote unquote started living this boom hardcore authentic life, or was it more a progression? Because it sounded like it when you said you were doing stuff that was like, Rainbow, or I don't know, Grateful Dead, or even the Burning Man Society, or so that seems like you were like in the corporate world and you started going to these things, and then that started.
I started out authentic. I started out as a deadhead, following the Grateful Dead. My first job in catering and pizza allowed me to follow the dead. The owner of the business was a deadhead. I was primarily hired because I was a deadhead, and I would go to the shows with him. So I spent, pretty much my college years and my high school years going to the dead and going to high school and working after school and, kind of balancing that world. But I was still had aspirations to have a business, to have all of these things that everybody in the community thought I should have, get married, have 3 kids, all of these things. And as my life progressed, I didn't see my life going down that path. And I started, I was, let's say, like the first person in my community to have a child before they were married and keep the child and not give it away. I was the first person in my community to marry somebody that was not the same religion as me.
Now, when you say community, what was your community? Were you religious? Were you born super religious and were in an Orthodox type of religion, or?
My parents lived in a conservadox, between conservative and Orthodox. That's where they lived. I was raised more conservative than Orthodox, but the community was closer to like the other side of it. And a lot of things
like a Chabad type of modern Orthodox kind of thing?
No, little bit less than that.
Little
Well,
less than that. Okay. And so you didn't go to yeshiva or anything like that when you were younger?
I
No.
went to Hebrew school,
Okay.
but that was it.
Right. But that's like a Sunday school kind of thing, or is that during the week? Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes, like when soccer season was, it was during the week.
Right.
And then as I moved out, when I moved out of the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe because I did so many drugs or still do so many drugs, I was able to see so much more opportunity.
Give me 1 second. My phone might die on us in a second. I'm trying to charge it, and it's not charging, and it's freaking me out. So I'm going to see if I can find another charger to plug in and try this out.
Okay.
But keep talking.
So while he's looking for a charger, I was able to see so many other opportunities. I saw different cultures of people behaving different ways. Different cultures of people behaving different ways. And then I realized that some of the beliefs that I had didn't match my personality, didn't match my energy, didn't match even what I wanted to do. And I still struggled internally where I was still putting the suit on, putting the button-down shirt on, going to work, going to the corporate thing, behaving the way that they wanted me to behave, not having purple hair, or whatever color my hair would be, not wearing like a fun, colorful shirt, or pretty much being in a black and white world.
Right.
Or a black, blue, and white world. I decided that it was, eventually moving on. And then in 2016, I was visiting one of my partners for New Year's. And whatever was going on in her mind, she was going to get us painted in front of an audience at a party. And at that party that I was going to get painted at, it wasn't just painting like on an easel. It was the first time that I had the opportunity to be body painted, naked, in front of an audience of people. On New Year's Day.
That sounds so much fun.
And I had gone straight from, we went to see String Cheese the night before. We went back to the hotel and shaved all my hair off with a hotel razor. And then I got painted, and I was an instant hit. The artist that painted me loved me. He loved me enough that he called artists back in New York to hire me to get painted at parties.
And it just is something that just went boom, and the universe was like, boom.
Yeah, and then and then I thought back, when I was a kid, I would take the garbage out. If I was naked, I was naked. If I had to mow the lawn or rake the leaves, whatever I was wearing, I would, until I got complaints about the neighbors or my parents. And that was now it's my true self. I can be who I want. And the comment that I got in Denver when I did it was, "You're the first guy that took the sex out of the nudity."
Oh, wow. What a great compliment, no?
Yes. It was the most amazing compliment.
For sure, because it's I was able to look at you and not look at you in a sexual manner, but look at you in a human manner. Wow.
So I started going around and basically getting painted by everybody, and then I started becoming more popular with the press and the people than the artists were. I see by your face you know exactly what that meant. That meant that artists no longer like to work with you. Because if you're an artist and NBC News is coming up to talk to you, you want the spotlight. You want the camera as the artist, not your artwork, which to me is kind of weird.
I mean, ego, right? It's all about ego. There's a really good movie that's just coming out right now, and I just watched it. It's with Samuel L. Jackson, and it's called Death Room.
Okay.
And it's based on a guy who is African American, but he's Jewish. He thinks he's Jewish. He wants to be Jewish. I don't know. But and there's a woman who owns a gallery, and a guy who's a murderer. I don't want to tell the whole story, but it goes into the nuances of the art world, the blue chip art world, and why things become expensive, and why and how artists get a razz, and how the dealers are involved, and how there's like dirty money involved. It's just a great movie, bro. To express a lot of what you're talking about right now, and how other artists, there's even an artist in the film, she's like, I can't believe you're getting paid $150,000 for your first piece. You know, who do you think you are with your drab art style and your throwing of paint? What do you think you're, Jackson Pollock, or whatever she says in the film, kind of idea, right? And then she huffs and walks away, and it's just like, I mean, really? Like, it's so funny because art's so subjective, and it's only bought by those who only want to, like, it's ego in the buying world, even, you know?
It totally is. I was just at the Armory show in New York, which is a big art show, and I walked around and I was recognized, which really surprised me more than anything. And a lot of these gallery owners were like, oh, well, let's put you under our wing. And I had a conversation with probably about a quarter inch of business cards worth of gallery owners that have basically told me that they would like to wrap art that I like and the people that have Hardy's energy likes. So I've been working with them and this gentleman in Turkey to get together what they asked me for.
Nice.
And the most interesting part about it is I have a friend that's a Russian artist, and I like her work. And I submitted her work as like the first one to just test out the system. And she put prices next to her work. $350, $1,000. You know, not a lot of money, right? Reasonable prices for an artist to sell art. That's like a back and forth. She's not a name person or anything. The first comment I got was, we see her art, but in order for it to be able to sell in our galleries, we need to add 3 zeros.
I was saying the same thing. Yeah, so this is something that I went to it was very funny. I was in Houston. Houston has a really drab art scene, music scene, thing scene. I don't know what's going on there, but a lot of people feel it there. And a lot of people leave the Houston area to go become famous somewhere else because Houston is such a, it sucks you in. It's weird. And it's like a vortex. But anyways, what was I going to try and tell you, man? I forgot what I was going to say. What were you saying right before that? I'll see if I kick it again.
We were talking about the price of the artwork, where
right. So I did an art show in Houston, and I do pieces of art on cardboard. Like, that's what I like doing. It's a throwback to Basquiat's early pieces. It's the way that the things that I have a whole bunch that I'm back out, right? And so I went to this art show with my pieces, and I'm like, 1,500, 5,000. And people are looking at me like, bro, you're crazy, bro. And I said, I'm crazy maybe, but I've already sold a piece for 1,500. So How crazy am I?
Yep.
And if I say that that's 5,000, I say it's 5,000. I'm the motherfucker who made it.
Yep.
I put prices on my shit. You don't get to put price on my shit. You know what I mean? And so, like, and there was a guy who I hung out with through that process who later on got it. Like, he just got it. And I was like, look, bro, there's 3 ways to look at yourself as an artist in this world. You're local, you're national, or you're international. And if you think of yourself as an international artist or a national artist, you will immediately start acting different with the people that you interact with and how you interact with people. Because it's a different mindset than a local artist who's at local shows, even in New York. And I'm not trying to down New York, but what I mean by that is of like, oh, I'm doing a show in Brooklyn, and oh, I'm doing a show in Queens, and oh, I'm doing a show in Manhattan. You're just doing local shows, bro.
Right. Yep, I agree with you 100%.
You know? So, anyways, get back to you, because I'm super interested in actually talking to you after this, just for me to kind of, what I would love to have you kind of unwind the last pieces, maybe, because I had this amazing thing happen to me like 5 weeks ago, where I went to what's called a boogie, and a private hippie gathering that's more glamping than Rainbow, by all means, right? Everybody's in an RV. There's a kitchen, 24-hour food. It's like I've never seen anything like this before with hippies. I'm like, this is amazing, you know?
Really?
And yeah, it was.
The hippie that we know is not the hippie of today. The hippie of today has a pop-out RV, has 4 Teslas, has solar array on top of their pop-out RV, has a backup diesel generator, and a gas generator for the thing.
That's what I was. Every single person was like older. Listen, I understand it, right? On some level, like a lot of these people have been coming to this one in particular boogie for 30 plus years. And so private party, can only be invited. You only get the address 1 week prior so that nobody can know where you are. Some of the best musicians. And it's just, well, everybody has cell phones, but I didn't have mine for 5 days. I just and just was in the forest for 5 days. And like I said, so beautiful. This was like, I think 100 and some odd acres, 100 and some odd, 125 acres, and a couple layers, and like they had free taxis, electric taxis running around the entire. It was so cool, dude. And yeah, man, I had this event there where I ate too many mushrooms and I went real deep and heavy. And I don't know if it's just nature or what, but I got to this such a heavy point that all of a sudden, like, light broke, if that's the answer. Yeah. And then from that light breaking, it's this thing that then started to turn into LED lights. I'm going to just kind of explain it. Nodes were my LED lights with these little light strings that connected to different things in 3D space. And I would say, okay, I'm not a magician, and that light would turn off. And I'm not a musician, that light would turn off. And I'm not an artist, and I'm not this, and I'm not that, and I'm not. And I went to, like, I'm not any of the things that I've added upon me. I just went back to source, to the last little dot that I could find. And I saw this amazing story of me holding a torch and my mom and dad behind me and the grandparents, and then all of a sudden that kind of melted into this fractal of time and space, and me at the tip of time and space kind of holding this thing. And it was just like, oh my God, the miracle that I am. And whoa, right? And then it just, everything that was dark just went. And I understood this idea of radical acceptance. And this came out of that. Literally the day after that weekend, this started. And that's when I was like, oh, I'm getting it. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about everybody else. Let's go. And that's what this is a challenge for, because I did 365 videos twice, every day for 365 days. The first time I missed it by 3 days, I got pissed off. I did it again. And then I came back and I was like, I don't want to do that again. I want to do something more challenging. Okay, let me get 365 guests, one a day, and let's do long form podcasts, and let me find out everything about each person I talk to. And what a journey it's been, friend. What a journey it's been in the last 30 days to today. Every single episode has been mind-blowing. Every episode has been life-informing. And not just for me, but for people who are watching or sending me messages who are like, yo, you have no idea what you're doing right now. You're putting out stuff that nobody's putting out. because people are too scared, or they don't want to this, that, and the other, or they've become too hyperbolic with who they think they are in their podcasts. I'm like, bro, I want homeless people on my shit. I want heads of state. I want famous people. I want losers. I want winners. I want it all.
But so you just said you want losers, you want winners, heads of state. Who defines what all those people are?
But that's my point.
To society, a loser in America might be an amazing person in Guatemala.
That's my point, Brooklyn. That's my point. That's why you're here today, because of the not just because A, I need a guest, but B, because you're Hardy Brooklyn. Like when if people look you up and they know who you are, they're like, oh, dude, this guy was on Paul's podcast. Like, that's dope. Like, I had somebody on a couple days ago that's, like the most award-winning magician in the United States. Like, he has 34 awards in 3 years. Like, and first place awards, not just awards, right? So it's right. So it's like, and they're friends of mine. These are just people I know. And right. It's like, and I know you through like Matthew Silver, through, oh God, I'm going to forget his name, through Special Head. I'll call him Special Head. Through that whole crew, through Eric, because I lived at the Occupant's house. Right. I did graffiti on that wall. You know what I mean? Okay. You know what I mean? I was like, I feel like I'm part of that New York community on some level, because I've always been, whenever I go to town, that's where I live. Those are the people that I want to, right. When Matthew Silver was in New Orleans, I got naked, went in the streets, put on some underwear that were red, a red cape, and we went to the streets together, and I had a love sword, and he had his love chicken, and it was great. And I would do it any day of the week. But I'm a weirdo like that doesn't care. Like, I like being a weirdo. I like doing fun, weird stuff for no reason, because it's life. Like, you get the chance to be silly and stupid, and yet we're all trying to be like.
Let me ask you a question. You said weirdo, silly, stupid. You said all these negative words. Why do we have to constantly put labels on things? Because you're not acting weird, you're not acting stupid, because what people have a perception of is what is normal is not normal, is not normal human nature, is not normal life. I mean, there are so many things in America and in the world that we perceive as normal, but are really not normal. They're just ways that somebody thought it should be and nobody ever questioned it, or they had enough power that people feared it. Like, when we go out as a culture, and when you go out and what Matthew Silver does, that's entertaining. Mm-hmm. That's not weird. That's not stupid. That's not
no. I think Matthew is an absolute genius in the simplicity of the dynamic thing that he's actually saying. So when he says love your fart, and you're like, I don't get it, but then you kind of like stay in that world and kind of understand where he's coming from. And like, there's a genius there that is so way out here that people don't really recognize, that you have to really kind of like eat that food for a minute and then go, oh, whoa, dude, wait, this guy's way beyond like just a regular thing. There's something really radical here that's, whoa, when you really understand the essence of what he's saying.
And that is all true. And what I see, though, is so many people don't, because of all the labels, all the connotations, all the other stuff in society. Most people don't break through to even, they may maybe get a quarter of the way where he wants them to get. But he'd need to have like 4-week workshop for most people to get them all the way where he wants them to get. Not even on the activity, just on the understanding.
Yep. Yeah, but that takes like life, living on the street, if you will, or being in the muck of society. And I don't mean that in a negative way, like in the same way that like Madonna was in the what they would consider the muck of society when she was learning how to do Vogue, and then she brought that into this, thing. That's like, you know what I mean? Like that's like what you would consider the dredge of society, or the jazz of the 50s, or the whatever. Once again, the older generation pointing fingers at what is or what isn't. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to say that when I say like weirdo, I'm like, keep it weird, Austin. Like, that's what I mean by it. Like that's the goal in my life. Is
Right, except that's still the label that society is putting on people. They're not. A lot of people don't like when I talk to older people and even some younger people, depending on their background. They think that what me, Matthew Silver does, what Eric does, what all we do with like that is all weird. It's not part of normal society. It's because we don't know who we are. It's where we don't know our place in society. But yes, we do know our place. Me, Matthew, and Eric, out of all the people, we probably know our place way better than most people. My place is to empower people.
Right.
Eric's place is to let people know they can be loved. Matthew Silver is to basically break their brain.
Yeah.
Because they can't comprehend the concepts that he's putting out there. And we know our place. Because Matthew Silver, Eric, and me don't have corporate jobs or whatever job it is, working at Amazon in a warehouse, we're weird. But I'm not. I coach people all over the world. I run a coaching group every Wednesday that has people come in every Tuesday at 9:30 New York time that has people come into it from all over the world. Most of the time there's not that many Americans there, which is kind of weird because it's the ideal time for America.
Go figure.
Depending on the country and the part of the world, I've noticed that like if I was talking to somebody from Ecuador, all of the Silvers, the Erics, the me's, we're not weird. We're just they call us creative.
Creators. Yep. Yeah. Once again, when you get outside of the United States, the idea of performing in any way, shape, or form is lauded in a way that here it's not. Where here it's like we want to put you on a pedestal only so we can cut down the pedestal as we put you up there.
Yep.
Where in other countries it's not like that. It's like, and I've noticed American artists who are magicians who have left here and gone to other countries because they're treated better. They have a better form of quote unquote fame there. That's not this ravenous style of fame that you have here in the United States, which seems to be, like I said, very much a bring you up only to kill you, like only to cut you down. Like we want, as soon as we get you up there, flock, oh, you're up there. Now we want to, we want to take you down. Look at what they're doing with anybody who speaks honestly as well. You know what I mean?
Right. And people in America just have to start realizing that everybody is not the same as them. Everybody is not that same character on TV. And I had a very interesting conversation with a friend yesterday because there was an assault on the streets in Brooklyn. Somebody got assaulted while I was walking to his house.
Whoa.
And when I got to his house, we had a conversation about it. And he was like, nothing's probably going to happen because that's an expected way of behavior.
Mm.
Except the person that was assaulted had the same expectation that everything that happened to them was going to be like an NCIS episode, where all of a sudden now she got jumped on the street, she got punched randomly by a guy that she said no to having random sex with. So he punched her. Her expectation was when she went to the cops, they were going to provide support and assistance to her.
Right.
The problem is the cops were like, oh, well, we could take a report and we could start something. And
we don't really care. Did you actually get hurt? Right, exactly.
No, she actually did get hurt. She was bruised pretty badly. But her expectation was a detective was going to show up. And this was going to show up. All of these things were going to happen that happen on TV when there's an incident. And you know what happened? 2 cops came over, took her information, didn't even ask her for ID, and said, well, there's not much we could do about it because you can't really ID him just enough for saying he was a black man my height with dreads. They didn't ask anybody else. They didn't ask the people he was with. They didn't do anything. Because that's the MO, and because she had that expectation that all this other stuff was going to happen.
Yeah, like a movie scene is going to happen. Yeah, the ideal compared to the idea is what I like to call it. And that's for me. It's why people don't do things. They
Right.
think too much of the ideal and not the idea, and then they get caught up. Oh, I can't do it because I'm not this, or I can't do it because I don't have this, or I can't because I'll never become that, and so I don't want to try it now. And it's like, what?
Yep.
What?
Well,
Like,
they
to
have
me,
an
that breaks my
expectation.
brain. So, I've never skydived before, but I went and I skydived. Why? Because why not? And I never did this before, but I saw other people could do it, so I know that I can do it. I never flew a plane, like stunt plane, because I've been flying since I was 15. Never flew a stunt plane, but had seen enough flying of stunt planes that when I was in there and I was given the stick, I could fly a stunt plane, and quite well. And even the guy who was in the cockpit who was talking, he's like, bro, you're pretty good for never flying. I was like, well, I kind of flew, but I've never done this shit, And I'm doing loop-de-loops, bro, like real style, crazy dog shit, and I'm fucking loving it. Like, but then again, I've played a million video games. I've seen things. I've actually been in a plane. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, those are like building steps. For like, they say that if a child doesn't like eating vegetables, make them watch videos of other kids liking eating vegetables, and then they'll start to want to eat vegetables.
Yeah.
It's like
so true.
That simple. It's literally that simple. And it's like, if that's true, then think of all the propaganda and all the BS and bullshit that's going on in the world that's pushing us in other directions. If just watching somebody eat vegetables will make you want to eat vegetables. They say that, getting into some weird stuff that I'm not sure is true or not, but there was a Japanese scientist, and he grabbed water, and then he put the water and yelled at it in different ways, and then supposedly it crystallized in different forms. I've heard that that's true. I've heard it's not true, but I do understand the idea of vibration, and I do understand the idea of negative vibration, intentional negative vibration to positive vibration. And I had a guest on yesterday who said that he had seen something where you can actually see the vibration of somebody thinking positive thoughts, and then they can actually see that transfer to the person that's in the other room that they're thinking of. Supposedly. There's some kind of video or something like that where the energy is being seen transferring from one room to the other, which,
I mean, I believe in some of that things. I mean, one of the things that I find really weird for myself is if somebody that is a threat to me, whether or not I know them at all, but they could be a potential threat, and they walk in the room, my hairs on my arms start to stick up, and wherever angle they are, my body tenses up.
Whoa.
And the way that I really came to terms with it is I was regularly on a podcast, and not an ex-con, a current con that had just gotten out and was in the process of doing some other really shady things, came into the podcast studio for like being the next guest. And I didn't know that much I didn't know anything about the next guest. Because I didn't prepare, And the gentleman came in the room, and he sat like diagonally behind me. And about 2 seconds later, I was like, ooh, my arms feel really weird. And then he moved seats without me knowing, because I was on air looking at the screen. So I was really tight over here, which was where he was sitting off to. And he moved to be closer to the door, which was this side. And I literally felt the tension move across my back. Wow. And then when we got to a break, I'm like, who are you? What's the deal? And he's like, oh, I'm this gangbanger guy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's that? What is there? And he's like, oh, I always pack. And I'm like, okay, I'm out of here.
Wow. So that goes into this idea that we're still talking about, right? That's real. So there's this thing like remote viewing, which was studied within MK Ultra, and a lot of people didn't believe in it. And Uri Geller was very heavily involved. And as of recently, there's a magician who did a 2-part episode on remote viewing on YouTube, and he actually did it. And he actually was getting better at it by using the techniques that they taught him and that the CIA had created. And so he's a magician, card tricks, very famous. And he's like, it's really crazy because I'm believing stuff I shouldn't be believing in. And I only believe in it because I actually did it and it worked. And I'm not faking it. I'm not like, I'm literally being put in a room. I'm going through these steps that it tells me to go through. And then I'm writing down what I feel I see. And then when I tell the guy, I believe I see a white building with red points on top, a moat, and a gate that comes, I'm looking at a castle. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm standing in front of a castle. That's freaking wild, bro.
Yep.
That's wild. So, but that also goes to another, there was a scientist that did a thing with crossword puzzles. And this one's very interesting. So they would get a randomized crossword puzzle machine that would make a crossword puzzle, and they would give it to 100 people, and only a certain amount of them, 40, 50%, could actually finish it. But then every once in a while within those tests, they would throw in one that had been in the New York Times prior, weeks before, and those would go through the roof on how many people could complete them. And so what it was trying to attest to is that once the information is out there, that it's sort of kind of floating and it's easier for us to grab. Sort of kind of like mathematics was created at the same time on the earth in a couple different places, or the radio was created at the same time in different places, or, those kind of ideas, once they start to like pop up, they start to become things that other people are able to attach to, because so many people have already thought or worked on it, for instance.
And word spreads. And energy spreads.
So Marla earlier said something earlier, and I want to get to it. And I want to apologize to everyone because the whole conversation went somewhere else based on my insecurities. And you were attempting to catch me on my insecurities and help me resolve that, which I thank you. And I just want everybody else to recognize that I recognize that when I was saying stupid, when I was saying silly or weird or different, it is my own insecurity inside of me that is making me say those words instead of artist, performer, creator, lover. And it's my own thing that I'm working on, and I think that I'm using this as a process to create that as a better me. So I thank you for helping me and saying what you said, because I totally understand exactly what you're saying. And I was going to – as a matter of fact, it's why I went to the whole thing about the words and how, supposedly it changed the ice crystals into different things. And it goes back to what we're saying, that energy – moves and goes out. And so if you're not really aware with what you're listening to, what you're seeing, how you're speaking about yourself and others, because she said somewhere in here, she goes, true, the best part of you is hanging out with you. You just let things happen. And then she goes, when did being your authentic self mean judging others? And I think somewhere along the way, I guess I was judging somebody else without recognizing it or knowing it. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be a person that, I guess, judges, because I don't know. Like on some level, I think I'm going to have prejudices no matter what I do in this life, right? Things that I like, things that I don't like.
We will always have prejudices. We will always judge. We will always comment about those prejudices. We will always comment and judge about all of that. What we need to overcome is, when we have those conversations and we say somebody is weird, we just need to contextualize it. If you can contextualize that statement, it changes it a lot. So if I say, yeah, Matthew Silver is weird, why do I say that? Matthew Silver to me is not weird. Matthew Silver is just another guy. When I'm talking about Matthew Silver's art, I'll say, oh yeah, a lot of his stuff comes across as weird. People don't understand it. It's quirky. It's all of these other labels. And the reason why I feel I have to use those labels is because when I say Matthew Silver is an amazing performance artist that's going to trigger your brain, nobody wants to see him. Nobody wants to listen to him. Nobody cares. And I thought that was really interesting because we did an event together, and we were both on the stage, and there was an expectation of everybody to behave in a certain way that was doing this open mic. And when people started to be very differently, so I came up and I read like my back pocket speech, and I just read it. And the reaction that I got, because it was what was expected, was amazing. And then because of the theme of the night was basically mostly spoken word and things like that, then you get a Matthew Silva that comes up and does an amazing performance. Everybody in the audience is like, that's weird. And why are they saying that? Because it's different.
You know what's really crazy? I saw him do a performance in New Orleans, and it was really quite some years ago, and I believe it was one of his first, like when he was first coming to doing like, I'm going to be on stage and do this thing that I do, but I'm also going to do it in a manner that kind of has some kind of thing to it, right? So, and so it was very weird the way that people didn't know what to do. But I also think that's also part of the franticness of what he is and what he's trying to convey. So so he gets on stage and he does his bit where he freezes, where he'll do blah, 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 and then, and he just stops, right? And then everybody just like was so like, what's happening? Why did he stop? What's going on? And then people start talking in the audience, and as soon as they start talking and asking questions, boom, he starts performing again. And then everybody's like into it, and then as soon as they get into it, he stops. And then they're like, yo, what the is going on here? And this goes on for 15, 20 minutes, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. To me, I'm seeing it like, oh my, I mean, it's breaking my brain to have these people like, how do you not see what's going on here? You give him energy, he uses energy. When the energy's done, he needs more energy, so he stops, and then you have to create it, and then he's going to use that, and then it's just going to go back and forth, and the more you give, the more he's going to do, and then all of a sudden he's going to, and it's just like, how do you not, but they don't see it. But then it's weird that somewhere along the way, throughout all of that process, there's still this amazing lesson that's being taught in being. In just being. Like at one point, like they start clapping and they're like, oh my God, we figured it out. We figured it out. He walks out. He literally walked out of the venue. And everybody's like, what, are we supposed to follow him? Like, what are we supposed to do? People started getting up and walking out. So that's not what he wanted, because that ends the performance. So he walks back in and goes back on stage. And it was just like, oh, God, yes, it's so good. It's so good. You know, I'm like, fireworks are blowing off in the sky for me. I think a couple times, because I was so into it, I was just like, ha, and I just said what it was, and people were like, oh. But it's like, it's the same thing with like Special Head, like the way that he does his levitations. And like, if you know anything about magic, and I obviously I do, but like he does some really cool ideas to keep this thing floating, this Special Head character. Right. Even when he did the people under the hole, the mole man, and that ended up getting the city to clean up a whole situation that they didn't want to deal with. It went on the news. It got Daily Mail. People in the freaking, they're having raves underground.
Yep.
It's so good though, but it's like, do you know the name? And this is a very good friend of mine. Have you ever heard of the name Alan Abel?
No.
Bro, please look up. It's a documentary film that was made by his daughter, and it's called I think Adam versus Abel or something like that. Man, this guy is the premier guy, the guy who started it all. I mean, okay, so he started the first sex Olympics.
Okay.
He did a dressing of animals. He started a campaign to dress animals, and he had horses with pants on. Why let people see the penis of an animal? That's gross. You don't let me see my penis hanging out. Why are we going to do it for a horse? Why let a dog or a cat? It goes the hell off. It's great.
Right, and that kind of art is amazing. And how do we, as a society, the question I always ask people, how do we as a society start to embrace that art?
Mm-hmm.
How do we respect that art? And the one thing that I see is so many people, because of the lack of education, the way that we teach education, they can never comprehend the art because they're not creative thinkers. They're not taught to think objectively. They're not taught to think with process. And like what Matthew does, what Alan Abel did, what all of these people do, that is talking about society in a way that is taking the levity off, taking all the pressure. It's making it lighthearted. It's making it soft. It's making it fun. And why should fun be weird? Why should me having purple hair be weird? Why should me wearing crochet pants be weird? Why should me, wearing high heels be weird? It doesn't matter. It's fun. And the people that are interacting with me and Matthew and us and you in a positive way have fun. They're not having ulcers. They're not drinking. Well, they might drink too much. They might do too many drugs, but they're not having a negative aspect on society. They're not going out there and being the bad players.
And this is what I was going to lead to the next thing, because I like to talk about this a lot, and that's, and this is heavy, buddy. Transhumanism and the idea of the future of this world and humanity, and what I consider the split that's happening right now. And I'll explain it if you need, but I feel that we're 4 different types of people. We're indigenous, we're the people that you and I are now, and the 2 that are coming, which are going to be genetically altered people, and then people who are altering their body with some kind of physical attribute that is giving them more, like Elon Musk's Neuralink, or any of these kind of things where you can attach some kind of something to your body, right? And use your biometrics to feed off that energy. Christopher Francis says the old school mentality wasn't open to this. We have finally reached a new evolution that we are just coming into. I feel that that's true. I think that we're just because of artificial intelligence, because of the rapidness of technology, this is leading into what we're talking about now, the transhumanism thing. How much is too much when we talk about, and I'm not trying to be a police here, right? But how, because there's part of me that wants me to say the statement in one way, and another part of me that's like, yo, but look at these stories. There's this young girl, she was 9 years old, she wanted to be an artist, and now she's like a 15 or 16, 17, I think, now, and she's super famous, and her mom and dad only let her do art, and they homeschooled her, but they gave her the art world so that she could just do that, and this girl is absolutely ridiculous, amazing, right? And very well should be. She's painting 8 hours a day since she was 8 years old, and she's 16, so 8 years straight. You would hope you're pretty good at something by then. But she's phenomenal. She's not just kind of good, right? And so then the other part of me says, and this is a fight that a lot of people are having because of the transgendered movement thing, and I watch these guys who do these billboard things where they walk around, it's kids don't have the choice to give themselves hormones. And so my question now comes to, when is too early, and also when is too much to just everything's free, everything's open, and just take anything and just it's a form of anarchy there that I'm not sure I think things would work the same. I don't know, because I've never lived in a world of anarchy. And I don't think people understand what anarchy truly means. So I don't know. Those are my questions. Please.
Well, I try not to judge people, and I think that the world of anarchy, as far as what people think of it is, no one is anywhere near the reality of it. I mean, when I travel, and I've been to a lot of this country, what people think is rights and privileges because of whatever belief system they have, a lot of times it's not. And a good example is, I was at a bluegrass festival in a state in Virginia, in a county, in a whatever town it was, and by law they were not required to have any medical personnel on site. But that's their given right. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow. And as I literally watch a guy go down for heat exhaustion, and I go talk to the lady, and she's like, oh, I don't want to pay $1,000 to have like a medic sit here in a tent and all that other crazy stuff. And like, it makes the scene look bad that there's an ambulance here. It's just asking for something bad to happen. So I said, how much does it cost per ambulance run? That's not my problem. The attendee has to pay that. And then I think back to New York that like, you pretty much, if you have more than 200 people, you pretty much need to start having some of these services available. And I thought about how much better of an experience it is. And that took me to the next conversation with this woman and man, which was, we also just voted to get rid of all of our taxes locally for sanitation, for street cleaning, for street repair, for all of these things, because I have a right to do what I want with my own garbage. And my next question to the woman was, how much were your taxes? And the husband bolted out, they were $7,000 a year. And I'm like, you paid $7,000 a year for a huge house in taxes, for garbage pickup 3 days a week, for plowing of your street, for repaving of your street, for the sweeper to come down your street twice a week, and all the other services that came with that. So you got that $7,000 reduced to $5,000, but you lost sanitation pickup, you lost street cleaning, you lost street repair, and you lost snow clearing. And the first thing the woman blurts out of her mouth is, it cost me $8,000 a year for my garbage pickup now. You heard it right. Her garbage pickup now is more than her taxes were, because she cannot negotiate with a garbage company to come to her house and pick it up 3 days a week for the same price the government was doing it. Because it's capitalism and open market. You're muted.
No. Sometimes I do that so that it doesn't reverb, and then I'm just agreeing with you, and I'm saying, yeah. I don't want that even in the verb. Like, I want to just hear you. I mean, like, I'm just, unless I turn the mic on, you keep a talking.
And it was very interesting to me to see those conversations that they didn't, like, the husband didn't see the price increase. He didn't see the ramifications for his decision. He just became mad that the government was making him pay all this extra money. The community did not even acknowledge that they created the situation. It was the Democrat. And the guy sitting there is like, the Democrats did it. I'm like, okay, so I'm in a Republican county that has no Democrats in office and all that, yet it's still the Democrats' fault. And I'm like, okay, we need to have another conversation.
Who voted?
Yep. So I moved the conversation away, and because of the limited scope and all of the fears that have been put into these people,